Okay, Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Abayim, welcome everyone. Sorry, late. I wasn't planning to be here now, so I had recorded the class earlier, um, but it didn't come out very well because I was very, very tired. So, and I'm still pretty tired, which is why I wound up staying here. Um, we're on page 33 in the book To Be a Jew, which is the beginning of chapter 3. Says as follows. Um, the reason for the mitzvahs, Tamei mitzvahs, occupied the attention of all the great scholars and rabbis of Israel. A great body of literature was built up, um, whose purpose was to explain the reasons for all the laws of the Torah, as well as for the many regulations and customs that have grown up in the course of Jewish history. The Torah itself does not offer specific reasons for most of the commandments, while reasons were often suggested by the earlier and later authorities. Earlier authorities is what we would call, in Hebrew, we call the Rishonim, which is in the medieval times, from around, let's say, 900 of the Common Era till about 1500, 1400s or so, about 500 years, that period. And then from the time after the Shulchan Aruch, the Shulchan Aruch was like that in-between time between the Rishonim and the Acharonim. And since the Shulchan Aruch, we have the Acharonim, the later authorities. Um, these, what we call Tamei HaMitzvos, the reasons, were not regarded as necessarily correct or valid. But as he says, they were suggested. They were not put as this is the reason for the mitzvahs. But these were suggestions. These were philosophical insights into the Torah rather than to say that this is the. Is it on the table? Yeah, yeah. Rather than saying that this is, the law, or this is the reason. And then he said, the greater the rabbi and scholar, the more his explanations and reasoning carried weight. But in no instance did they assume the level of imposed doctrine. Sages who lived in different ages and under different conditions would often see different purposes, different reasons for the observance of this or that particular law. Rather than detracting from the validity of that law, such variety of explanation only provided added testimony that the Torah was indeed a law for all times, throughout your generations, a statute forever. Despite changing conditions and circumstances, it was ever meaningful and relevant to those who delved into it and sought to understand it. I mean, that's anything which we would call timeless. Generally, you can find something that's connected to um, any particular time, and that's something that we find with the mitzvahs. And so that's part of this exercise of delving into the meaningfulness of the mitzvahs that um, shows the timeless quality of our Torah. That it gives us meaning in every situation. Um, the there's something else though that we have to bring up about what these we call the meaning of the mitzvos. The Hebrew term that Rabbi the, that Rabbi Donin is quoting here, well-known Hebrew term, does it's not really the meaning of the mitzvahs, as I heard once from Rabbi Zev Leff um, in Israel, in Eretz Israel. He said that it's the word ta'am, as we know in Hebrew, means flavor, a taste. And so the Tamei HaMitzvos is not the reason for the mitzvos, but rather we're on page 33. Page 33. Tamei HaMitzvos means the taste, the flavor to the mitzvahs. He explained it like this. He said that, um, you know, if we would just swallow pills that were nutritious, we could have everything we would need. And then we would we wouldn't need anything else. We have everything we need from the pills. Now it wouldn't be so enjoyable to just swallow pills and not enjoy our food, but it would still be we would survive. On the other hand, if we, the way Rabbi Leff said, if we would have good tasting rocks and eat those, meaning if we had some type of food that had absolutely zero nutritious content, and that we would eat those, we would die after a while because and that's all we ate. We would lose out because we wouldn't have the excuse me, we wouldn't have anything to give us food. We wouldn't have any nutrition. And so the Tamei mitzvahs, we call the reasons for the mitzvahs, are not the reasons, but that's only the flavor. As Rabbi Donan is about to say, we do the mitzvahs because God said so. And that should really be enough for us. Uh, he uses a little bit of a different idiom to describe it, but I think the way Rabbi Leff describes it is much better, because what it was saying is that the mitzvahs, they they lack they lack any the mitzvahs are not what's lacking, but like these reasons that we give to the mitzvahs, that's not the reason why we do the mitzvahs. The reason why we do the mitzvahs is because God said so, and that's the nutritious value, of the mitzvahs. Whereas the uh, the reasons, the philosophy behind the mitzvahs are secondary. That's just what makes the mitzvahs enjoyable. That's what just gives us, satisfaction that we're doing something, because it's we can think about it, we can meditate on this idea, that idea, and that gives us the enjoyment in doing the mitzvahs. But that's not the reason we do it. I always, even some that the Torah itself tells us a reason, still the main reason, it's still almost like a Tamei HaMitzvahs. It might be more than the Tamei HaMitzvahs that we get in, let's say, the Sefer Chinuch, which gives us, one of the most famous books. It's called the Book of Education, and it was by a Rishon, or by Aaron Alevi, and there you have the uh, you have this the reasons for all the mitzvahs. And he wrote this book. Actually, he said that for something for his children to read on Shabbos. And then in the more recent times, in the 19th century, there was a very in-depth commentary on the Sefer Chinuch, the Minchas Chinuch. Anyway, it's not the that's not what we're doing. That's not why we're keeping mitzvahs. It's not because of whatever the reasons are. And I say this even like something we all know. The reason for one of the mitzvahs is um, is the is matzah on Pesach. Why do we eat matzah on Pesach? Because one of the reasons we all know is that there wasn't enough time for the bread to rise, so we eat this matzah. The thing is, that's not why we eat it. We eat it because God said so. And so why did God say so? This is one of the reasons to commemorate this thing. But we're not. Um, this isn't the 4th of July. It's not that we just are eating the matzah like this was something we came up with to commemorate it. We have to make it clear we eat matzah because God said so. And God said one of the reasons is because, it's like it says in the Bible, that's why we eat it. God said so. And one of the reasons why God said so, he says in the Bible, is because of this, but it's really not the only reason. There are many reasons. But the main thing is because God said so. The thing is that having these reasons, especially in the modern world, it helps us to connect to the mitzvahs. And that's the next thing Rabbi Donan is going to say. But there's a problem, though, because a lot of people make the mistake, and this is where we have you know the reform movement. A lot of people will say, I'm a Jew in my heart, and I don't need these exterior things to bring about the sublime ideals of Judaism. And it's not true, because and that's not a new idea. There's nothing new under the sun. It goes back to Philo, and Philo is not from our holy canon. We don't accept Philo. One of the reasons why he was not accepted. He was a Jewish fellow. He in Alexandria, Egypt, at the same time as the Talmud, and yet you know and he had his commentaries on the Bible, and yet we're not accepting this as holy because because one of the things was that he said we don't actually need to do the mitzvahs. That it's enough to just to have in mind the concepts behind them. That would be enough. The thing is that no, that's not enough. Meaning that he said you just meditate on these concepts and you fulfill what the purpose of the mitzvahs. No, because there are deeper purposes that we don't understand. And the thing is that we have to think of it like this. Those of us we have children, we tell them, um, certain things. You know, the way Rabbi Abraham J. Twersky in an interview I saw with him, he said the following. He said, when he was a kid, his parents would tell him, he has to take some medicine, because the doctor said, and he didn't want to take it. It was very bitter tasting, and they said, well, if if you take this medicine, he said, we'll let you have some candy or let you go buy a comic book or something that he wanted. So as an adult, if you would tell an adult, to take medicine so he could buy a comic book, it would be ridiculous. And the thing is that all of us in our spiritual path, to some extent, we're still children. So we have, what we think is sublime, what we think is noble, what we think is so brilliant. No matter what we think is the most brilliant thing in the world, when we get to the next world, it will seem so childish that we won't be able to. It'll seem so silly to us because there are so many much deeper secrets into the Torah than anything we can understand. Meaning, even if we get into all the depths of the Kabbalah that we know, the things that will be revealed to us after this life will make all those things even those things seem childish. But also, on the other hand, there are many people who disparage the Kabbalah because they misunderstand it, and they think that that stuff is childish. But what they don't realize is that no, it just means that they themselves are still at a childish state in their spiritual growth, that they cannot grasp what this is. I mean, it would be similar if we explain certain things to children, to young children, that are the most sophisticated things that adults have in mind, in various things. Most children would think certain things are disgusting, certain things are silly, certain things are ridiculous. But as we get more sophisticated, we realize that no, this is the this is what being an adult is all about. Um, and so too it is with Judaism. But the thing is that we can do the same things. The same mitzvahs can be relatable to anybody on any level because they are the Word of God, because they are the perfect Word of God. They are timeless, and so therefore we can find meaning in everything. But still, the ultimate meanings are still hidden. And really, even though Rabbi Twersky was talking about another concept when he was talking about receiving the comic book. Um, he was talking about receiving reward in the next world, but it's not only it's the rewardingness of the Torah that we have. Okay, so Rabbi Donin says on the bottom of 33, the only reason that a devout Jew needs for the observance of any of the commandments, however they may be classified, is that they reflect the will of God. I mean, that's something that we have to, that we just said. Basically, the main thing is God said so, and that's good enough. As an obedient servant of the Lord, it is His duty to carry them out. God said so; we got to do it. However, this has never stopped the Jew from trying to understand the reasons for the various laws and commandments. Meaning, there's like we'd say, Nasiv and Ishma. We will do and we will listen. And the word "listen" also means to understand. Meaning that part of the idea is that we we should try to understand, but we have to do without understanding first. they say in the yeshivas, "Mishtarb nicht von a kasha." We don't die from a question. That that we can have questions. We don't have to understand everything, and it's okay. By searching for the reasons, he felt he was drawing himself closer to the mind of the divine, that he was therefore raising himself up spiritually. That, yes, we talk about these things, we investigate these things, but this is not going to change our observance, whether or not we understand them. We're going to try to understand them to the best we can, but even if we don't, we're going to keep doing it. And that's the big difference between, let's say, Philo, who said you don't have to do it anymore, and that's what today the Reform movement, they say, you know, either if we don't understand it, we don't have to do it anymore, or we do understand it, and therefore we don't have to do it anymore because we can fulfill this without doing it. And that's not the purpose, because we have to understand that it is the Word of God. God knows a lot more than us. He's not telling us everything necessarily in an open way. Our understanding is limited. It's not because, meaning really, God is telling us everything, but we don't know how to hear it. And really, in this life, we can't really fully know, but we have to do our best and just do it, and have the faith that when we get to the next world, we're going to know the answers. So only when confronted by a statute whose reason totally escaped him, such statutes are called chukim in the Torah, did he resort to the ultimate reason: this is what God wants of us. The inability to grasp a sensible purpose or to find a reason was never used by a man of faith as a pretext for discarding the observance or even for asserting that no reason and no purpose existed. One either gave up and admitted his limitations or continued trying even harder to discover the meaning and purpose. Meaning that we have the text we have um, is To Be a Jew by Rabbi Donin. If you go to our website, eyeshiva.com, you can download the text. We're on page 34 right now. Where it says downloads, you can download the text. Um, so there's two things. We got to continue to do the mitzvahs, even if we don't understand them. And sorry. So we got to keep doing the mitzvahs, even if we don't understand them. And we have to know that God has his reasons. And the thing is even the reasons that we can ascribe, even this is something that Rabbi Donin is not saying, there are always deeper reasons for everything that we do not understand. In a way, this is one of the major differences between the modern Orthodox approach and the ultra-Orthodox approach, is that there's much less change um, in our circles, because we do not say that if a reason of a rabbinical law stops existing, um, that we stop doing it, as opposed to in other places they might say something like this. The reason for this that the is that we say even the rabbinical laws, the rabbis had deeper intentions when they made these laws. And so um, someone might say, well, the reason for, let's say, Chol of Yisrael, which is a rabbinical law, is that the is that we have to know that the milk is kosher, and so we need to observe the milking. So the thing is that, well, if the government is watching it, that should be good enough. And we say no, because there are deeper reasons behind this. Although the thing is that actually Reb Moshe Feinstein, Zichron Levracha, did not say that batul time batul davar, but rather that it has the same mystical qualities of Chol of Yisrael, according to his opinion. Although he still said that someone who is of a high spiritual quality should continue to be careful. And most everyone else, feels that it's really a rabbinical law that we cannot change. Similarly, washing my machronim after we eat, before we bench, we wash a little bit. And so the Talmud says the reason is because they used very strong salt from Sodom, and if someone wasn't thinking in the middle of benching, they could touch their eyes, they would go blind. And now we don't use that salt, so we don't need to wash our hands after we eat. And we know in the more Hamish world we still do, because there are deeper reasons behind it, Kabbalistic reasons and so forth. It's very interesting though. The Vilna Gaon held that my machronim had to be a full amount of water, like we wash before we eat. But and that would hold true with this original reason of the halachic reason of the very strong salt. But the Kabbalistic reasons are saying that we're giving something over to the side of evil, that they should leave us alone. And so the Satmar Rebbe said you should actually try to use a very small amount of water, because the halachic reason doesn't apply anymore, but the Kabbalistic reason does apply. And the Kabbalistic reason, we would not want to use so much water. And so therefore, you see things like this even in this. Okay. Page 34 in the middle. Again, if you don't have the book, you can go to the download section of the website eyeshiva.com and watch where it says there were periods in Jewish life, particularly when Jews lived in ghettos, removed from contact with competing influences, when the masses of Jews did not find it necessary to understand why, and they were satisfied with knowing how. Meaning that's the way it's supposed to be, really, is that we're supposed to just look into, well, how do we do the mitzvahs? And we do it because God said so. We don't need to know more than just how. But that time is gone. Today, as other times in the history of our people, when Jews were in contact with other cultures and confronted with competing ideologies and movements, it is vital for Jews to develop an understanding and appreciation of the reasons, some grasp of the why. This is important not only to strengthen the convictions of the observant Jew himself, but also to provide him with the wherewithal to rebut those who may mock or question his practices. It's also necessary to be able to present Judaism to the Jew and non-Jew alike as a dynamic creed, as a living faith, as a relevant philosophy and way of life capable of challenging the various isms and spiritual fads that from time to time sweep across our society. So this is something important to note. It's interesting that he points that this is for both Jews and non-Jews. But still, that ultimate reason is because God said so. And the thing is that God said so in such an overwhelmingly impressive way in front of millions of people, which is something that never happened before and never happened since. And the Bible predicts that accurately in Deuteronomy 4. So therefore, that should be really enough reason, and that has to be the underlying reason for all of our Torah observance, is because God said so. And we know God said so because He said so in such an impressive way that no other religion makes such a claim. But then, into the particulars, of each thing, then we can look at, what is, what gives us the satisfaction in doing these things beyond that, meaning, and you can have both things in mind. Um, to arrive at the bottom paragraph on 34, to arrive at an understanding of the reasons for many Jewish laws, it is important to recognize the importance of mastering not only the particular but also the general. Which is what I just said. I mean, and this is something also that we have to be very careful about. I don't know if he's going to talk about this yet. We'll see. But I myself, I come from a mixed background. Um, my father is not Jewish and my mother is. So my grandfather, who's not Jewish, he would always say to me, well, and these are the things that he told. He said he was taught in church, in the Catholic Church, and my father was also taught these things in the Catholic Church. That the reason for these laws was because in those days they didn't have refrigerations; they had to salt the meat. They didn't have refrigeration, so ham wasn't healthy because we get trichinosis. But now it's refrigeration and all that, so this doesn't apply. And whatever. My father would always say, shellfish and catfish are all bottom feeders, and that's why we don't eat them, because that's why the Jews didn't eat them. But nowadays, we have more hygiene and we don't have to follow this. That's not true, because if that were the case, if the reason we keep kosher, for example, was health, so then it would have been a universal law. But the Torah makes it clear that the kosher laws are only for the Jewish people. Now, if someone wants to become a Jew, they can keep them, but it's not. They have to keep them once they become a Jew. But it's not. It's not. A health issue, and so therefore, um, it's because and I think he's ignoring this, that giving reasons to the mitzvahs quite often leads to people thinking that they don't apply anymore. If we understand the reason. And no, because we have to understand that we don't ultimately understand the deeper reasons behind the mitzvahs, that there are things that are much deeper that we don't understand. However, still, at this point, we'll put that to the side. But still, we have that general idea that it is Judaism, meaning you cannot decompartmentalize the various parts of the Torah and say, well, appeals to me and this doesn't, because it is the general, like what we said. Um, God said so on Mount Sinai, and that's why we do it. So, whereas some laws, such as those which deal with acts of kindness and justice, do not require elaborate explanations, may be understood quite independently of all the other laws, others are not as easily grasped in isolation. While the notion of a day of rest is easily understood, the underlying principles which determine the halach and rituals associated with the Sabbath require an understanding of some of the basic ideas in Jewish religious philosophy. Still other laws, such as those of kashrus, the entire panorama of interlocking halachic principles and spiritual purposes must be understood in order to assign any meaning to the details. Try to explain kashrus without reference to the rest of Judaism, and one is bound to go astray. This is where superficial students of Judaism are usually misled, because it's not just about what's going on the outside. It's about it's all one thing. So So we have to, we have to talk about this, make it very clear um, that it's part of the wider thing of Judaism. And the thing is, the laws of kashrus are, people might think, well, just one thing. No, it's because like there are all these different things that come together to form this tapestry that we call kosher laws. Meaning, you would think, you could make a general statement. Well, something to, meat, we understand. Um, Kosher has to be slaughtered by a shochet, has to be Jewish slaughterer, so forth. Blood has to be removed, etc. But then you have a law like Basa Shina Salomon, it has to be, when it's being shipped, it has to be wrapped, double wrapped. It's one thing. But then more is that, someone will make a statement, but everything that's vegetable or fruits, that is automatically kosher. And that's not true. Because if it's from Israel, it might not be kosher right away. It's maybe something you could make kosher on your own if you know the laws, but it's not necessarily kosher. And different things like this, because it's a whole tapestry of the various laws. So we might compare the total panorama of Judaism to a giant jigsaw puzzle, which when we put together shows a beautiful, inspiring picture. Remove any of the pieces from the middle, not only is there a gaping hole which mars the beauty of the entire picture, but if you ask someone to identify the individual pieces, he may find it quite hard to do. A single piece of the jigsaw puzzle may make no sense at all. It may just appear as a mass of confusing, meaningless lines and colors, but put it back where it belongs in the picture, not only is the beauty of the whole picture restored, but the meaningless, confusing piece, when fitted to all the other pieces, suddenly makes sense. Its lines and colors assume a very clear-cut design. So is with kashrus and some other laws that in isolation may not appear to have any rational reason, but considered against the background of which they are part as a continuation of a whole series of religious disciplines that touch every aspect of life and that are intended to teach men to control their passions and their appetites, the specific details of each law begins to be seen in sharper focus. Um, so that's something that's a very interesting point there also. Um, and Judaism has to be taken really as a whole, and that's why a person cannot convert to Judaism and say chutz medavar echad. He's not allowed to say, "I'm accepting everything except for this one thing," because if you're missing one piece of the puzzle, you're missing out the whole thing. Now you can live as a ben Noach and pick and choose what you want to do extra things, although certain things you cannot do. To certain things are the privileges that you get once you become a Jew. But to become a Jew, you have to accept the whole thing. And that's how our ancestors became Jewish, the ones who were born Jewish. And the thing is, those who are Jewish have to realize that they're missing out on their Judaism if they're not accepting the whole thing. Every Jew should give himself the the stringency of what it takes to become a Jew. Um, I mean, it's not strange that we ask the newcomer to Judaism, the convert, that we put him to um, a stricter form. We see that it's like becoming a citizen of the United States. In order to become a U.S. citizen, you have to study history and stuff. And many citizens who are born citizens, they do not have this knowledge. They might not even know who the vice president is. But to become a naturalized citizen, it takes a long time. It's a 7-year process, and which is longer than the process in most Batei Din to become a Jew. And and you're expected to know more. But the thing is that every Jew should see himself. He should be inspired enough. He should love being a Jew, and he should. It's a problem if he has a question. If he found out he wasn't Jewish, would he just throw it all away? And when so many Jews would say no, they wouldn't be Jewish, they're really missing out. And the thing is that we should all want to be Jews, those who are Jewish. And they say that the Pisetzner Rebbe, he writes in his journal that one year he was a big tzaddik and he worked hard on himself and he was a great teacher and so forth. He said, now I've decided I'm going to be Megayer. I'm going to convert to Judaism. What does it mean? Of course, he's Jewish already, but meaning he's making that type of decision, and we should all, even we're born Jewish, we should really try to make that decision in our lives, as if we are becoming Gerim, and put ourselves to the same demands. If we want to call ourselves a Jew, we should expect from ourselves the same demands that a Bezdin would expect from a convert. Because a friend of mine who's not particularly observant, but he's a believer in Judaism, and he's very Jewish in his life, but he's in the secular way of being Jewish, and he attends an Orthodox synagogue. He said to me, it's not fair. Me, I'm accepted right away, even though I drive to shul on Shabbos and that. And in order to become a Jew, it's a lot of work, and we should level the playing field. So I said to him, I said, well, maybe I know this is not going to be such a pleasant thing to hear, but maybe we should level it up, not level it down, because Judaism is something that's meant to lift us up, to exalt us, and so we want to level the playing field. We got to lift it up, and so maybe it should be not that maybe we shouldn't be accepting you so quickly. I mean, I still love you, you're still my friend, but you should be lifted up, not the convert who should be uh, appealing to the lowest common denominator. So Rabbi Donin said, before getting to the specific laws dealt with in the book, I wish to elaborate on the overall reason given by the Torah for demanding of the Jew that he follow all its laws and regulations. It is so that Israel will become holy or sanctified. Speak to the whole Israelite community and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. Leviticus 19:2. Again, Exodus 19:6, you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. This calls for the sanctification of Israel as the reason for the observance of the commandments. Is repeated over and over again throughout the Torah, sometimes in introducing, sometimes including entire sections of laws, sometimes in relation to individual statutes. So we see from a biblical standpoint, the purpose of the Torah is to make the Jewish people holy, to make us a separate, distinct nation, and the purpose of our chosenness is to be holy, first of all, and then also is to be a kingdom of priests, to be serving the world. Priests serve the community. So our job is to teach the 7 laws of Noah to the non-Jewish world. Um, okay. I think that's enough from the text today. And then we'll continue, God willing, next week. All right. If we have any questions, I'll give a minute or so for questions, and then we'll close up for today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Tonight at 8 o'clock, for those of you who speak Spanish, who understand Spanish, it's going to be a very special program. A whole bunch of different speakers from 8 till 10 tonight, live from Florida. It's a program that Rabbi Otero is organizing tonight in lieu of the class he would have given this morning. And all welcome to that tonight at 8 o'clock uh, in this same website. Um, okay, well, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back Tuesday night with the kosher class and the Noahide class, and then Wednesday night with the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, and then Thursday night the different philosophical classes we have. Uh, kind of, with Asher's class from Dennis Prager's book, and then my classes in Kabbalah and Hasidus, and we'll see you again for Shalashudas, and you can watch the old Shalashudas, the last night Shalashudas on Ustream on our channel. We have the recordings. YouTube doesn't always get the whole thing, so it's probably better to watch it on Ustream, and we have a link to that on my Facebook. So thank you for joining us, and have a very blessed day. Bracha v'atzlach.